There are people doing God's work in Congress. One of them is named Lieberman. I cannot believe how good this man has become. He's getting to be the only representative out there who I actually think is doing his job. Here is a man, Senator Joe Lieberman, calling for the National Guard to go to the U.S.-Mexican border, and then he wants to investigate the Fort Hood massacre by Hassan, and he's being blocked by the Department of Homeland Security and by the so-called Justice Department. And he has the nerve to stand up to them. Listen to clip 13. This is Lieberman.
Because this investigation of ours into the murder by a U.S. Army major of 13 Americans on a great American military base, Fort Hood, demands investigation by us, particularly on the question of what people in the Army knew about Hassan's drift toward Islamist extremism, and also what people in the Justice Department knew about the communications he was having with a radical cleric in Yemen called Alaki.
Now, we only hope that Lieberman is not investigated by the Department of Homeland Security for saying Islamist extremism. We'll hope that it hasn't fallen to that level yet. But this is an interesting story. Now there's the story of the virtual electronic fence. Remember I told you it was rubbish? That was pushed by Dianne Feinstein. God only knows who got the contract on that one. Remember when they were going to build a virtual fence, we were screaming for a wall with between us and Mexico, and the politicians, the liars, said that a virtual electronic fence would do the job. Listen to clip 16.
We have now spent, through the Department of Homeland Security, about $700 million on a virtual electronic fence called SBI Net. By this time, actually a year ago, it was supposed to have covered the entire border between Mexico and the United States. Right now, it's completing 23 miles of that border in the Tucson area. It's been a terrible failure and a waste of time.
Yeah, and I wonder who got the contracts. I'd like to know which senator funneled the contracts to whom. We knew that it was a lie. So then he wants the National Guard on the border. Listen to clip 18.
Of course, it costs money if the governor calls out the National Guard, and Arizona's as strapped as every other state. But I do think Arizona has a good argument in saying that just by the accident of geography, the fact that they're on the border with Mexico, they're the major place through which illegal immigrants, drug smuggling, human smuggling comes across the border, cash and guns go southbound into Mexico, that they're really bearing a grossly disproportionate share of a national problem, and therefore the nation, through the National Guard, should help them out.
I would say that if Joe Lieberman, independent, ran for the presidency, I'd back him 100%. I'm the first one to say it. Go, Joe, go. Run, Joe, run. Joe Lieberman is doing the work of the American people. I'm going to say it until finally he hears it. I doubt that he'll ever come on the show. He's not a friend of mine, you know. Doesn't matter whether he's a friend of mine. He's a friend of America. Joe Lieberman, I never thought I'd be saying this, but I've watched him over the last few years. This guy is really brave, and he's really honest, and he really is smart. Joe Lieberman for president. Joe Lieberman for president. What do you think about that idea? I mean, he stands heads and shoulders above the Lilliputians around him. That's all I can say.